Connie Margotto DeBate was 39 years old and lived with her husband in Ellington, Connecticut. Richard, who was 40, lived there with their two sons, Richard Jr., known as RJ, age 9, and Connor, age 6. The family originally hailed from Rockville. Connie grew up in a large, lively family and developed a passion for hosting gatherings as she got older. She found immense joy in spending time with friends and family, sharing good food, and playing games together. No matter the occasion, Christmas, New Year's, or Halloween, she was always the one organizing celebrations. While many friends drift apart after high school and college, Connie was determined to keep everyone connected. She frequently arranged high school reunions to ensure the bond stayed strong. Known for her energetic and cheerful personality, Connie was the first person to offer help or advice and was always there for anyone in need, no matter the hour or how busy she was. Connie met Richard DeBate, a computer technician, at a summer party. Some thought they were an unlikely match, but they clicked immediately. Richard had a playful, almost childlike side, always trying to lighten the mood and make people laugh. Connie shared that same spirit, and the two fit well together. When Richard introduced Connie to his parents, his mother said she instantly knew Connie was someone special. The couple married on July 4, 2003, and moved into a beautiful home at 7 Birchview Drive, a quiet street in the suburbs, bringing along their two sons, RJ and Connor. On December 23, 2015, just 2 days before Christmas, Connie and Richard had already finished decorating their home and wrapping presents. Connie was excited to spend quality time with her sons over the holiday. She got them ready for school and dropped them off before Richard returned home to change into his work clothes. Shortly before 11 a.m., Connie was preparing to leave for her spin class. Suddenly, authorities responded to a brief 911 call triggered by the house alarm. Neighbors on the normally quiet Birchview Drive were jolted awake, drawn to their windows and doors by the sound of sirens and vehicles rushing toward the DeBate home. As the news spread, it became clear there had been a home invasion at 7 Birchview Drive. Both Connie and Richard had been assaulted by a masked intruder who remained unknown. Police arrived quickly, instructing neighbors to stay inside, lock themselves in rooms, and wait for an all-clear to ensure the intruder had not entered other homes. When the neighbors finally came outside, they saw police tape everywhere, flashing lights, and police officers all around. Richard was found bleeding and tied to a chair, but luckily, he was already in an ambulance. Connie was found dead in their basement. She had been shot twice, once in the back of her head and once in her stomach. The police were sure the man who did it had already run away, so the neighbors were allowed to leave their houses. Richard was shocked and upset, but he told the police everything that had happened that morning. After he got treatment at the hospital, he said he left the house at 8 a.m. to take the kids to school. Then he came back around 8:30 a.m. to change into his work clothes. When he got home, he saw Connie getting ready for her workout, putting on gym clothes and backing her car out of the driveway. She was going to a spin class at the local YMCA, but the class got canceled, so she came back right away. Richard had about a 40-minute drive to work, but after 10 minutes, he realized he forgot his laptop at home. He turned his car around, and soon after, he got a message on his phone saying the alarm at the house had gone off. He emailed his boss to say he'd be late because he wanted to check what was going on. He got back home between 8:45 and 9 a.m. and heard a noise upstairs. He quietly went up and saw a tall man wearing camouflage clothes and a mask. The man was going through Connie's jewelry. The man saw Richard and told him to give him money, credit cards, and PIN numbers. Richard gave him his wallet. The man's face was covered, but Richard thought he was about 6 feet 2 inches tall, strong, and had a deep voice. Richard said he reminded him of Vin Diesel. After that, things got confusing because it all happened very fast. When Richard heard Connie come back, he yelled for her to run. "I told her to get out of the house," he said. But she didn't run. She went to the basement. They had 2 guns in the house, one locked in the basement and one in the closet. Connie ran downstairs, probably to get a gun to protect them. At 9:05 a.m., Richard and Connie heard 2 gunshots. The man ran into the basement. When Richard followed, he saw Connie lying on the floor, dead, and the man was holding one of their guns. The man stabbed Richard in the legs with a box cutter, tied him to a chair with zip ties, and then burned him with a blowtorch. "I was sitting there in a chair, half tied up and in shock," Richard said. "What do you mean by half tied up?" the police asked. "I had one leg free and one arm free. He tied one leg and one arm, and he tied my neck pretty tight with a zip tie. He used the blowtorch to heat up his mask a little, and that's when I caught on fire. He dropped the blowtorch, and I started yelling for help, but I couldn't hear anyone. I got really dizzy." Richard said he managed to grab the blowtorch and burn the man's face before the attacker ran away. Even though he was still tied to the chair, Richard made a quick call to 911. The whole story was so strange and scary that the detectives didn't know where to start. They talked to neighbors and Connie's friends, who said the couple had been having problems with a contractor in the months before. They were unhappy with some work done on their house and had even sued the contractor for a few $1,000s after one of their cars had its windshield smashed. Connie was sure the contractor was behind the attack. She was so worried that, even though she was scared of guns, they decided to buy one for protection. Richard kept the gun locked in the basement. The police found the contractor, Ken, who said their business ended on good terms. He was upset about losing money in the lawsuit, but said he had moved on. Even though this seemed suspicious, it didn't prove he was the attacker. The week after Christmas, as everyone was getting ready for the new year, Connie's family, friends, and the whole Ellington community prepared for her wake. No one was surprised by how many people showed up, even though it was freezing outside. Hundreds waited in line to say goodbye. After waiting 3 hours to talk to Richard at the funeral, Ken was happy to be photographed and let the police search his devices. He had no criminal record, and his height, build, and voice didn't match the description Richard had given. So Richard probably would have recognized him even with a mask. When they finally talked to Connie's two best friends, who had known the couple for over 10 years and had gone out with them many times, the police were surprised. "How do you know my wife?" Richard asked, looking confused at them. The friends were surprised, but thought it was just because he was stressed and didn't think much of it. Later, they told each other, "That was weird. There wasn't a single scratch or bruise on him. Nothing at all." Nothing about the friend's burial surprised Richard, who left the funeral earlier than usual. 2 weeks later, there was still no clue regarding the case. Fox 61's Katie Coronado went to Ellington to try to find out more. She reported that as time passed without answers, the rumors in town only grew louder. The state police hadn't given any updates, and Richard DeBate had not replied to questions. People said that if you didn't know who he was, you wouldn't guess his wife had been killed or that he had been badly hurt. Richard seemed cheerful in the days after, going out to dinner, hosting parties, and joking around as if nothing had happened. He posted on Facebook that he was staying strong for his boys and thanked everyone for their support. Grief is strange and doesn't have a set way to behave, but soon the town started talking about Richard and how strange he was acting. Something felt off to friends, family, and detectives, who began to feel uneasy about his story. At Birchview Drive, the investigation moved slowly. Unfortunately, none of the neighbors saw or heard anything, but because the houses were spread apart, officers expected that. There was no sign of forced entry, but the basement window was open a little, maybe where the killer got in. Nothing was missing or messed with, and police dogs couldn't find the scent of an intruder leaving the property. The wallet Richard said was taken from him was found just outside, looking like it hadn't been touched. The gun had no fingerprints on it, none from the intruder, Connie, or Richard. Richard had some small knife wounds, but nurses said they were not serious. The more Richard talked to detectives, the more his story kept changing. At first, he was very sure about what happened, but later he seemed unsure. He went from saying he heard Connie get shot, to saying he saw her get shot, to then saying he didn't see or hear anything. He told the first responders that the killer was still inside the house, but later he told detectives he saw the man leave. Richard said everything started just before 9 a.m., and that Connie was shot 5 minutes later. He hired a defense lawyer, but the 911 call wasn't made until nearly 10:30 a.m. on Christmas Eve, the day after Connie was killed. A week later, Richard filed a claim to collect Connie's life insurance, which was worth $475,000, and he also withdrew $93,000 from an investment account that was in her name. Even though their relationship looked perfect on the outside, there were clearly problems nobody saw. In December 2014, Connie had written a note on her iPhone called "Why I Want a Divorce." In it, she said Richard wasn't a good parent, didn't show her love or attention, and she criticized how he handled money carelessly. In the part where she wrote reasons to stay, she said people liked him when he was in a good mood and that he was fun to be around. She still thought he was attractive, but she wrote, "I don't know anything about his day, who he talks to, or what happens in his life outside work. I'm tired of covering for him, tired of lying, and tired of pretending everything is fine when it's not." The police kept this quiet, but already had reasons to be suspicious. Richard was having an affair with a woman named Sarai, someone they had known since high school. Richard and Sarai had been on and off for years, but started dating seriously in May 2015, just 1 month after Sarai found out she was pregnant and reportedly asked Richard to leave Connie. During a 7-hour interview with Richard at the hospital, he brought up Sarai himself and admitted they had an intimate relationship, but said it was only because Sarai wanted to have children. Sarai had asked for their help. She said she wanted to have a baby, but was having money problems and asked Richard to be the sperm donor. "We were going to help her have a baby," Richard said. They decided to do it the old-fashioned way because going through doctors was too expensive. So not a medical procedure, but still natural in how the baby was made. Connie didn't just agree to it. She actually signed for it and said it was her idea. When police asked Richard if he knew Connie was trying to help Sarai get pregnant, he said yes, that it was Connie's idea. Detectives found out Richard had told friends that he accidentally got Sarai pregnant, which made his story even harder to believe. Richard gave a second version of the story. Or maybe the baby's father wasn't clear, but friends didn't think Connie knew anything about it. They said she would have told someone if she had. Either way, it seemed Richard wanted to leave Connie out and start fresh, thinking that would fix all the problems he had caused. In June 2015, Richard did talk to a divorce lawyer, but police didn't find any papers for a divorce. 2 days before the murder, Richard's phone showed a text he sent to Sarai promising he would leave Connie. The next day, he texted Sarai again, telling her he loved her and would see her tomorrow. On the same day, Connie's phone showed she argued with Richard. She accused him of lying about a bill, saying, "You lied to me, and I'm cleaning up your mess again. Have a nice day off and a very happy Christmas." Richard replied that Connie didn't know he had spent over $1,000 at a strip club and bought flowers for Sarai at a motel using a secret credit card. If that wasn't enough, Richard had also searched online for dangerous over-the-counter drug mixes, quick and untraceable homemade poisons, and tasteless poisons that anyone could buy. Connie, who was usually very active, wore her Fitbit every day until she died. The data from her Fitbit showed a completely different timeline from Richard's story. It was almost Christmas 2016, and the new year and spring of 2017 had come. The police already knew Richard waited over an hour before calling 911, but that could be because of stress or confusion. However, using data from Connie's Fitbit, security cameras, the computer, and the home alarm, they narrowed the morning's timeline to between 8:26 and 8:27 a.m. Richard said he left for work at 8:41 a.m., but in truth, he was on Facebook on his home computer at that exact time. Between 8:45 and 9 a.m., Richard's computer was used to log into his email before Connie came back home and was shot at 8:46 a.m. Richard said he came back home and found the intruder, but Connie's Fitbit showed she left for her spin class 1 minute later. At 8:50 a.m., Richard logged into the home alarm system and turned it off, then turned it back on at 8:53 a.m. 9 minutes later. He used his keychain remote to turn it off again. A few minutes after Connie arrived at her workout, she sent a message to her therapist on Facebook at 9:04 a.m. At 9:08 a.m., Richard sent an email to his boss, saying he was pulled over in his car, but the email was actually sent from his home internet. Connie left the building and got back to her car after about 10 minutes. At 9:23 a.m., Richard was looking at the Indian Valley YMCA website, where Connie had her class. Between 9:40 and 9:46 a.m., Connie's Fitbit showed she was active, the garage door opened, and she was on Facebook. It looked like Richard was trying to figure out how to get her into the basement during this time. Connie's last movements on her Fitbit were at 10:05 a.m., and at 10:12 a.m., the panic alarm for the house went off, triggered by Richard's keychain remote. The data showed Connie was alive and okay for about an hour after Richard said she was already dead. Nothing matched Richard's story. He didn't leave the house, the times didn't add up, and Connie's heart rate and movements didn't show she was running from anyone. In April 2017, Richard was arrested and charged with murdering his wife over a year earlier. Connie DeBate, a mother of two from Ellington, was brutally killed 2 days before Christmas. There was finally a break in the case with a newly released 50-page arrest warrant showing what happened inside the house and the marriage. There was also exclusive video of Richard being taken away by state police. He was charged with murder, messing with evidence, and lying to the police. Officials said Richard was held on a $1 million bond and had a court date set for Monday. State police said they looked into everything carefully. It's very important to follow all leads, check all evidence, and talk to all witnesses and suspects. This is about the victim, said Grant. The investigation was a team effort from many law enforcement groups. She said they had to be very thorough to avoid mistakes in court later. People in the community reacted to Richard's arrest near their homes. It's always sad when someone loses their life, especially on a Friday afternoon, neighbors said. Richard, 40 years old, was getting onto their street when police gave him the arrest warrant for killing Connie. Now, people feel justice might finally come. They didn't bring up the case earlier because they didn't have enough evidence against the husband, they said. It took almost a year and a half to gather proof. People said the long investigation was a good thing. Police had to check every detail carefully before making the arrest, or else the case could fall apart. A good lawyer might get them off if the case isn't strong, and then you'd have a killer out on the streets. But the good part is they did a deep investigation, so hopefully justice will be done. During this time, Richard helped raise the child he had with Sarah. After posting $1 million bail, he was released while waiting for the trial. Then, in 2019, another sad event happened. Connie's father died. Even though he was sick for a long time, he wanted to see justice for his daughter. Connie's brother said he never saw the killer before his father passed away, locked up. Richard's trial was first set for April 2020, but was delayed because of the pandemic and because his lawyer died just before the jury was picked. The trial finally started in April 2022, more than 6 years after Connie's murder. This trial got attention from all over the world. More than 130 witnesses, including Richard, gave testimony, and 600 pieces of evidence were shared. Police followed every lead Richard gave them, including the contractor, but ruled everyone else out. This, plus the technology evidence, the crime scene, the dog unit searches, Richard's many different stories, and the affair, all pointed to one person. Richard's lawyers said the police only focused on Richard from the start and worked backwards to fit their story. The prosecutors said Richard was like a ticking time bomb who felt trapped. They said he killed Connie because he was afraid divorce would ruin his reputation and he would lose friends. He also worried about money and custody of their 2 boys, RJ and Connor. Richard's lawyers talked about some unknown DNA found in the house, even on the gun that killed Connie. 4 weeks into the trial, one of Connie's sisters spoke in court. She said the family only found out Connie was shot after they had a family meeting at their parents' house a day after the murder, and Richard DeBate was there. She said when Richard came to the house, she heard him say, "I didn't do it. There was someone in the house." They said, "I need a lawyer." She also said Richard looked upset and sick, like he had been crying. The family sat around the kitchen table, and Richard told them his story. He said he had a lawyer who told him not to talk, but he felt he owed the family an explanation. Connie's sister and her husband, who also spoke in court, said Richard showed no emotion when he told the story. The sister said Richard talked about a trip the family was supposed to take after the holidays to Great Wolf Lodge, but now he would have to find someone else to go with. 7 people who lived in the Ellington neighborhood at the time also said they didn't see anything strange that day. In court, Richard said he loved both women and felt stuck, but he said that didn't mean he was a killer. He said he still missed Connie every day and wouldn't hurt his boys. Sarah said she was ashamed and embarrassed about what happened, but said she never told Richard to leave his wife. She also said she was happy to raise her daughter alone and wouldn't put Richard's name on the birth certificate if he stayed with Connie. After 5 weeks, both sides finished their cases. In May 2022, Sarah said Richard never admitted to killing Connie and they never talked about hurting her. The jury said, guilty on all counts. This surprised many people at the courthouse. The jury only talked for about 3 hours. Both Richard and Connie's families had strong feelings when the verdict was read. Connie was dead, while Richard, the convicted killer, had been living his life out on bail for 6.5 years. There will be no closure for the Margutta family, but finally, there is justice for Connie. She was a wonderful sister, mother, and daughter. The judge sentenced him to 65 years in prison, calling his crime brutal, calculated, and incomprehensible. His parents still believe him and find it incomprehensible that he would simply lure his wife downstairs 2 days before Christmas, kill her, stage everything, and continue on without her as if nothing had happened. In October 2024, Richard appealed his conviction. Perhaps some of the most damaging evidence was the ticking time bomb question, which was asked almost exactly 24 hours after those notes had been excluded by the trial court. The state asked, "Did you feel like a ticking time bomb?" The defense argued that ticking time bomb makes their client out to be a dangerous person. They said there is nothing improper about using the defendant's own words in a prior inconsistent statement to impeach his testimony. Leslie, Connie's sister, is currently raising Connie's sons, who are still processing what their father did to their mother, and who, as a result of Richard's falsehoods, live in constant worry that someone could break into their house. Thank you for watching. Every victim deserves their story told. If you found this story shocking and heartbreaking, subscribe to Crime Uncovered and help keep their memory alive. What do you think about Connie's murder? Leave your thoughts in the comments. Until next time, keep questioning everything.